Here's the devil's advocate video. Is the Pareto principle at the heart of the matter, or just the tip of the iceberg? And now the artist in me will argue against everything I said in the previous videos about the Pareto principle. The Pareto principle states that 20% of your efforts will yield 80% results. It's easy to misinterpret it to claim that you only need 20% efforts to achieve success. That's crazy. Forget about just 20% efforts giving 80% results. Oftentimes, even 80% effort isn't enough. It's not enough. Not for me. Studying 20% will leave me with a knowledge gap. Working 20% will leave me with an integrity gap. Loving 20% will leave me with an affection gap. I don't want to love 80% or receive only 80% love from someone's 20% efforts. Sometimes I want to go all the way. Here is an example. A kind, genuinely sincere word to your teammate makes more difference than a dozen workshops on productivity with the same person. So be honest, authentic, kind to yourself, and extend that kindness to others and their fragile egos, especially to those 80% that seem to contribute 20% to the team's productivity, to your happiness personally. So many times in the last 3 years, a kind word tipped the balance towards hope rather than despair for me. So I believe in the magic healing of words, backed up by genuinely kind intentions. I will touch upon 3 different points in this video. The first point, magic and serendipity. The artist in me says, what about the soft brush of magic? What about the toothy smile of your toddler? What about the kind and knowing smile of your grandma? These people might not contribute 80% to your financial value or to your socio-economic status. Art might not contribute 80% to your results, but it fills our souls with beauty, affection, and perspective. These 20% people, the elderly, the children, the more vulnerable people in our lives, actually represent the 80% of significant value in our lives. Maybe the toothy smile of your toddler or the wise one of your grandma impact your life 80%, financially possibly in a negative way, but emotionally, cognitively, spiritually, contributing to a major chunk of your happiness. Happiness translates into motivation, which in turn translates into a more productive and enthusiastic me, which then means more work will be done. I tried to outsmart the Pareto principle, but it seems I only proved it's true. 20% of significant people in my life contribute to 80% of my happiness. Toddlers, grandmas. There we are again, going in circles and chasing our tails. Let me try to outsmart the Pareto principle. What about the unconditional kindness of a stranger? Could be a toddler, for that matter. What about a random idea from an acquaintance, which generated a discovery or an epiphany in your brain? By the way, stranger grandmas are known to trigger epiphanies in people. Serendipity favors only the prepared mind. So maybe we should spend our efforts towards the 80% of people who only contribute 20% to our happiness. Maybe we should continue doing the work which requires 80% effort with only 20% results. Our minds will be prepared for the serendipity and catch its discoveries. Our hearts will be prepared for the miracle and catch the unconditional gesture of kindness. Miracles do not follow normal distribution curves, do they? The brutal normal distribution curve and the Pareto curve, for that matter, do not appeal to the artist in me. I am releasing videos and putting 80% effort with no monetary results right now. Yet later, if I do this consistently, I'll get 80% results with 20% effort. Here's the catch. The 80% that you're willing to discard from your life by applying the Pareto principle, out of the 80%, metaphorically speaking, or let's just call it the majority, out of 80% of the people, out of 80% of the efforts, out of 80% of the art, 80% of the feelings. There might be a thought, an idea, that will become that 20% generating 80% of your results in the future. And by results, I mean financial, if you're so inclined, or an increase in your inspiration, motivation, the quality of your relationships, your health, any of the 5 aspects of our lives where improvement, tremendous improvement can happen. So don't discard the 80%. It will most likely be among these 80% that your next 20 will be generated from. Here is a second point. Which aspect of your life does not follow the Pareto principle? 20% of the hours in my day yield 80% of the productivity. Now, is my meditation a waste of time or the opposite? Am I wasting the best morning time, focus time on useless activities? Scientists discovered that the state between wakefulness and sleep, or doing nothing sometimes, helps the most with idea generation. Don't remove these intermediate states of being, these values on the normal distribution curve. By the way, the Pareto principle does not apply at the same ratio to the brain during sleep. Dreams do not follow laws and principles, it seems. It's 30%, not 20% of the blood that goes to the brain while we sleep. So let's come back to our rant. Which aspect of your life does not follow the Pareto principle? It's people. Always people. People bring value precisely because of their diversity. So only the 20% of the most productive ones from a single perspective, be it the financial, the social, the emotional, is too reductionist. We need the rest 80% to be less productive in one area while bringing value in another, through relationships, motivation, inspiration. Why don't we break down the Pareto principle for each one of the 5 aspects of life? In one area, for example, the spiritual area of your life, the one related to your life goals and hopes, it is possible that you see your 80% efforts producing only 20% results, right? It seems like it's going to waste. However, in the cognitive aspect of your life, 20% efforts produce 80% results. Picture the increase in your technical skills producing relatively fast, tangible outcomes. Are the seemingly inefficient life goals not influencing the cognitive aspect? We cannot take these 5 aspects in isolation. That's why the Pareto principle is not quite that easy to apply. Life is complex. It's made of at least 5 different aspects, all intertwined, cross-linking. Whenever I hear the word intertwined, it makes me think of Van Gogh. Can we separate Van Gogh's whirls and curlicues, the 20% of those most striking elements of his art, from the background? Will they look as awe-inspiring without the background, without the 80%? And finally, now we come to the third point of this video and the reason why I named it the tip of the iceberg. And here it is. What about the value of failure? Most of those 80% efforts which only yield 20% results are the iceberg under the water. These are the efforts which require failure tolerance, persistence, sacrifice, which generate disappointment, which demand discipline and dedication. It so happens that I have a healthy dose of respect for all of these: failure tolerance, persistence, sacrifice, discipline, and dedication. In fact, they represent the backbone of a strong relationship. So, is the Pareto principle just the tip of the iceberg? So, what do you think about all this? Please leave some comments below. And just to make sure you realize we're going around in circles here and defying the Pareto principle by doing so, I will discuss value stream mapping of my life using the Pareto principle again in the next video.